My name is Claire Dawson. I'm 34 years old, and I'm an internal medicine physician at Lakewood Regional Hospital in Colorado. I had worked 28 hours in 2 days, stabilized a patient in respiratory failure, and delivered bad news to a family without letting my voice shake. But at 7:40 on a Saturday evening, my former mother-in-law stood beneath a crystal chandelier, pointed at me with a champagne glass, and called me a gold digger in front of 186 people. She believed the divorce settlement would support her story. The bank records said otherwise. What no one in that ballroom knew was that I still had a faded transfer receipt in my purse, the first payment from what would eventually become $183,650 taken from my savings, my salary, and the inheritance my grandmother left me. And Evelyn Reed had just made the mistake of daring me to explain it. Welcome back to Raw Drama Stories, where quiet people don't always fight loudly, but they do keep records. Before I tell you what happened after that accusation, comment what you would have done in my place. The event was a fundraiser for a new cardiac rehabilitation unit. Local business owners attended, along with hospital administrators, department heads, nurses, former patients, and several members of the city council. I was there because I had helped design the medical program. Evelyn was there because Reed Construction had donated materials for the renovation, or at least that was what the printed program claimed. I had been speaking with Dr. Samuel Ortiz, the hospital's chief medical officer, when I noticed her moving toward us. Evelyn Reed was 61, always perfectly dressed, and skilled at making cruelty sound like concern. She wore a navy silk dress, a pearl necklace, and the same pleasant smile she used whenever she wanted witnesses. "Claire," she said, "I didn't expect to see you enjoying yourself after what you did to Ethan." The conversation around us faded. I kept my hand around my water glass. "Good evening, Evelyn." She looked at Dr. Ortiz, then at 2 nurses standing nearby. "You should know who you're promoting," she said. "She married my son for money, drained him for years, and left when she realized there was nothing more to take." Someone behind me stopped laughing. I felt the room shift, not into silence, but into attention. Evelyn raised her voice. "Stop pretending you're a respectable woman. You used my son. You took his money. You're nothing but a gold digger." There are moments when humiliation feels physical. Heat rises into your face, your hearing narrows. Every instinct tells you to defend yourself immediately. But medicine had taught me something useful. When a patient is crashing, you don't react to the loudest person in the room. You look at the evidence. So I placed my glass on a passing tray. "How much money do you believe I took?" I asked. Evelyn blinked. She had expected tears. "Hundreds of thousands," she said. "Maybe more." "Then you should have records." "Oh, we do." That was the first mistake. I nodded once. "Good." Then I walked away. For the rest of the evening, I could feel people watching me. A nurse named Michelle touched my elbow and whispered that she didn't believe Evelyn. A former patient avoided my eyes. Dr. Ortiz said we would speak privately on Monday. By Monday morning, 3 patients had requested different physicians. By Tuesday, an anonymous email had reached the hospital board claiming I had financially exploited my former husband. By Wednesday, my appointment as head of internal medicine had been suspended. Dr. Ortiz called me into his office at 8:15 a.m. He closed the door and folded his hands over a yellow legal pad. "This is temporary," he said. "The board believes promoting you during a public controversy would create unnecessary risk." Has anyone asked Evelyn for proof? The board isn't conducting a legal investigation. No, I said. They're just punishing me before one begins. He looked uncomfortable because he knew I was right. I had spent 11 years building my career. Medical school, residency, night shifts, holidays in fluorescent hallways, 40-minute naps in call rooms. I had earned that department position through work Evelyn had never seen. And one speech beside a champagne fountain had been enough to place all of it on hold. The worst part was that her accusation was exactly backward. When I met Ethan Reed, he was 32 and managing projects for his family's construction company. He drove a black Range Rover, wore expensive watches, and spoke about future developments as though contracts were already signed. I assumed he was financially secure. 6 months after our wedding, he admitted he had $74,000 in personal debt. He cried at our kitchen table. He said the company had suffered unexpected losses. He said employees might miss payroll. He said his mother could lose the house where he had grown up. I loved him, so I helped. At first, it was $8,000 from my emergency fund, then $12,500 toward a business loan, then monthly transfers of $2,000, sometimes $3,500, whenever Evelyn called with another crisis. She always sounded ashamed. Just until the next project closes, she would say. I worked extra overnight shifts. I postponed opening my own clinic. I sold the small apartment my grandmother had left me in Denver and transferred $96,000 from the sale into accounts Ethan gave me. Every payment had a reason attached. Payroll assistance, supplier balance, emergency property tax, family bridge loan. I believed those descriptions because Ethan confirmed them. Then, during the divorce, he claimed we had simply lived beyond our means. He said there was no money to divide. I was too exhausted to fight over furniture and cars, so I took my personal belongings, my medical books, and my grandmother's old silver watch. Ethan kept the house. He also kept the lie. I understood why 2 days after my promotion was suspended. My attorney, Rebecca Sloan, sat across from me in her downtown Denver office with Evelyn's public statements printed in a folder. Defamation requires damage, Rebecca said. You have lost patience, income, and a promotion. We can document all three. I placed my transfer receipts on her desk. There were 57 of them. Rebecca read the first page, then the second. Her expression changed. Claire, did the Reeds ever repay you? Not $1. And Evelyn is claiming you took money from them? Yes. Rebecca closed the folder. Then we file. The complaint was delivered to Evelyn 12 days later. She responded through her attorney with a written statement saying she welcomed the lawsuit because financial discovery would finally expose me. She even posted online that she looked forward to watching my reputation collapse under oath. I read the post from the physician's lounge at 2:10 in the morning. Then I opened my old banking app and searched the account number printed on my first transfer receipt. For years, I had assumed it belonged to Reed Construction. It didn't. The registered owner was a company I had never heard of, Silver Pine Holdings. And according to the state business database, that company had been created 4 months before my wedding. The document listed only one authorized officer, Evelyn Reed. Silver Pine Holdings had no website, no employees, and no physical office. Its registered address was a private mailbox inside a shipping store 12 miles from Evelyn's home. Rebecca stared at the state filing on my laptop. Do you recognize the name? I shook my head. Did Ethan ever mention owning another company? Never. She leaned back in her chair. Then we don't contact them. We request the records through discovery and let Evelyn explain Silver Pine under oath. For the next 6 weeks, I lived 2 separate lives. At the hospital, I treated pneumonia, uncontrolled diabetes, heart failure, and patients who trusted me with the most frightening moments of their lives. Between rounds, I answered questions from the hospital's legal department about Evelyn's accusations. At night, I sat at my dining table with Rebecca and built a timeline. We used bank statements, tax returns, text messages, property records, emails, and the paper receipts I had kept in a gray accordion folder. Every transfer received a number. Transfer 14, $3,200 sent after Evelyn claimed the company's workers had not been paid. Transfer 22, $11,750 from my clinic savings after Ethan said a supplier was threatening to sue. Transfer 39, $96,000 from the sale of my grandmother's apartment. That one still hurt to look at. My grandmother, Helen Dawson, had lived in that apartment for 31 years. She kept lemon candies in a glass bowl and measured my height against the pantry door every birthday until I was 17. When she died, she left the apartment to me with a handwritten letter. "Use this to build something that belongs to you," she had written. I sold it, intending to finance a small private practice. Instead, I sent the money to Ethan, because he told me 63 construction workers would lose their jobs if I didn't. The transfer had gone directly to Silver Pine Holdings. Rebecca circled it in red ink. "They didn't just take your savings," she said quietly. "They redirected your inheritance." 2 days later, Evelyn's attorney produced what he called proof that my payments had been gifts. The documents contained copies of transfer forms with descriptions beneath them. Voluntary family contribution. Gift without expectation of repayment. Personal assistance to spouse. I read the pages twice. I never wrote these descriptions. Rebecca pointed to the authorization boxes. But Ethan's electronic signature appears on 7 of them. That evening, I called Ethan for the first time since the divorce. He answered after 5 rings. "Claire?" I received the transfer authorizations. Silence. "Did you sign them?" "My attorney told me not to discuss the case." "That isn't an answer." He exhaled slowly. "Mom handled the business accounts. I signed whatever she put in front of me." "You signed documents saying my grandmother's money was a gift?" "I didn't read every page." That was Ethan's favorite defense. He had never known, never noticed, never understood. Somehow his ignorance always appeared exactly where responsibility should have been. "Where did the money go?" I asked. "The company was struggling." "Silver Pine isn't the company." Another silence. Then he said, "You should drop this, Claire." It wasn't an apology. It was a warning. "Why?" "Because Mom won't stop. She'll drag this through court for years. She'll tell people things about you. She already has. You could lose your position. I already did." His voice softened, as though he were speaking to someone unreasonable. "Then why make it worse?" I looked at my grandmother's letter beside the laptop. "Because you both counted on me being too ashamed to check." I ended the call. The court ordered the bank to release the Silver Pine records on November 8th. Evelyn tried to block the request, claiming the company had no connection to our marriage or divorce. The judge rejected her objection because my transfers had entered the account directly. That was when Daniel Brooks appeared. Daniel was 58, with silver hair, rimless glasses, and the careful manner of someone who had spent decades handling other people's secrets. He had managed Evelyn's accounts at Mountain Crest Bank for 9 years. We met him in a conference room 3 days before his deposition. He arrived carrying a black laptop bag and a sealed bank envelope. Before sitting down, he looked at me and said, "Dr. Dawson, I owe you an apology." "For what?" "I processed several of these transfers. I believed the explanations Mrs. Reed provided." Rebecca placed a recorder on the table. "What explanations?" Daniel opened the envelope. Inside were account statements, authorization logs, wire records, and internal meeting notes. Mrs. Reed told the bank the funds came from a private investor supporting Reed Construction, he said. She identified that investor as a family friend who understood the money would not be repaid. "She meant me," I said. "Yes." He turned the first statement toward us. Silver Pine Holdings had received every dollar I transferred. But the money had not remained there long. Within days of each deposit, Evelyn moved portions into her personal investment accounts. Some payments went toward credit cards, others covered luxury travel, jewelry purchases, and a $68,000 kitchen renovation. The $96,000 from my grandmother's apartment had been split into 3 transactions. $30,000 went to a brokerage account, $21,000 paid off Evelyn's Mercedes. The remaining $45,000 became the down payment on a lake house outside Grand Lake. The property had been registered under the name of Evelyn's younger sister, Patricia Lane. I stared at the numbers until they blurred. While I worked Christmas nights and missed family birthdays, Evelyn had been using my money to buy stone countertops and lakefront windows. Daniel opened another file. "There is more," he said. He showed us transfers from Reed Construction into Silver Pine, hundreds of them, stretching back almost 7 years. Evelyn had moved company income into the hidden account while reporting losses to Ethan, employees, lenders, and tax authorities. The construction company had not been close to bankruptcy when she called me crying. It had been profitable. Very profitable. By the end of the 5th year, Silver Pine held $1,874,216. Rebecca's voice remained calm. "Did Ethan know?" Daniel hesitated. Then he removed a printed meeting record dated 4 months before our divorce. Ethan's name appeared beneath Evelyn's. According to the document, they had both attended a private banking appointment and discussed how the Silver Pine assets would be divided after Evelyn's death. Beside Ethan's name was a note written by Daniel himself. "Client aware of undisclosed family funds. Requests continued confidentiality from spouse Claire Dawson." I felt something inside me go completely still. Ethan had known. Not after the divorce, not after Evelyn started spreading rumors. He had known while we were still married, while I was working extra shifts to rescue a company that had never needed rescuing. Daniel looked down at the table. "Mrs. Reed promised him the lake house and 30% of the account," he said. In return, he agreed not to disclose it during the divorce. The room went silent. Then Daniel turned the final page toward us. It was a wire request submitted by Evelyn that morning. She was trying to move $1.92 million out of the country before the court could freeze it. Daniel did not approve the wire. At 9:18 that morning, he flagged the transfer for internal review and contacted the bank's security department. By noon, the $1.92 million was frozen. Evelyn learned about it when her debit card was declined at a jewelry store. She called Daniel 11 times. Then she called Ethan. Then she called me. I let it go to voicemail. "Claire, this has gone far enough," she said. "You are destroying a family over money. Call off your lawyer and we can settle this privately." I saved the message and forwarded it to Rebecca. The woman who had publicly called me greedy was asking me to ignore nearly $2 million she had tried to hide. But the truth had already been filed. The hearing took place on December 3rd at the Jefferson County Courthouse. I arrived at 8:25 wearing a charcoal suit and my grandmother's silver watch. Evelyn sat across the aisle beside Ethan. She wore cream-colored wool and held a leather purse in both hands. From a distance, she looked composed. Then Daniel entered carrying 2 document boxes. Her face changed. Evelyn's attorney began by describing Silver Pine Holdings as a legitimate family investment company. He said my transfers had been voluntary gifts made during a marriage, and that Evelyn's comments at the fundraiser were protected personal opinions. Rebecca waited until he finished. Then she called Daniel Brooks. Daniel testified for almost 2 hours. He identified the Silver Pine account, the wire requests, the altered transfer descriptions, and the meeting record proving Ethan knew about the hidden funds before our divorce. Evelyn stared at the table. Ethan stared at his mother. Then Rebecca placed 1 page on the evidence screen. It showed the $96,000 transfer from the sale of my grandmother's apartment. Beside it were the 3 withdrawals Evelyn had made afterward. Mercedes Financial, $21,000. Mountain Crest Brokerage, $30,000. Grand Lake Property Escrow, $45,000. Rebecca faced Evelyn. You accused Dr. Dawson of taking money from your family. Can you identify 1 substantial payment your family made to her? Evelyn's attorney objected. The judge overruled him. Evelyn lifted her chin. She lived in my son's house. The mortgage was paid from their joint account, Rebecca said. Dr. Dawson deposited 71% of the income in that account. Evelyn's mouth tightened. Rebecca placed another document on the screen. This is the deed to the Grand Lake property. It is registered to your sister, Patricia Lane. Bank records show the down payment came from Dr. Dawson's inheritance. Did Dr. Dawson know she was buying your sister a lake house? No. The word was barely audible. The courtroom went silent. Rebecca didn't raise her voice. So when you called her a gold digger in front of her colleagues, you already knew she had financed property for your family. Evelyn looked at Ethan. He looked away. That was when her story collapsed. She said the transfers had been misunderstood. She said Ethan had managed the paperwork. She said Daniel had interpreted normal family transactions incorrectly. She even claimed she had been protecting Reed Construction from unstable market conditions. Every excuse created another document. Every denial had a date, signature, or bank record attached to it. Then Daniel revealed the final account category. Insurance proceeds. After Ethan's father, Robert Reed, was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, his policy issued payments intended for specialized treatment and home nursing care. Evelyn had told the family that insurance covered almost nothing. Robert died 8 months later. The records showed that $214,000 from those insurance payments had been transferred into Silver Pine. $26,000 was later used for the lake house renovation. For the first time that day, Ethan spoke without being asked. You told us the claim was denied. Evelyn turned toward him. I was trying to protect what your father built. He needed treatment. Her face crumpled, but there were no tears yet. I did everything for this family. Ethan stood so quickly his chair struck the railing. The judge ordered him to sit down. During the recess, he approached Rebecca in the hallway and offered to testify against his mother. In exchange, he wanted 30% of the frozen account, the same share Evelyn had promised him. Rebecca stared at him. You are offering to tell the truth only if you are paid? I can prove she controlled everything. You already signed the meeting record. The judge later rejected Ethan's attempt to claim any portion of the hidden money. His knowledge of the account had prevented him from presenting himself as an innocent beneficiary. The financial records were sent to state investigators and federal tax authorities. My defamation case was decided 3 weeks later. The court found Evelyn's statements false and harmful. She was ordered to issue a written public retraction, remove every online accusation, and pay damages for lost income, legal costs, and damage to my professional reputation. Through the financial settlement and the seizure of improperly transferred assets, I recovered $167,400 of the money I had given the Reeds. The amount connected to my grandmother's apartment was returned in full. Evelyn had to sell the lake house. Ethan lost his position at Reed Construction after the remaining partners learned he had concealed company assets during our divorce. He sent me a 4-page apology, but most of it explained how frightened and manipulated he had been. I read it once. Then I placed it in the same gray folder as the transfer receipts. An explanation is not always an apology. In January, Dr. Ortiz asked me to meet him in the hospital conference room. The full board was waiting. He admitted they had reacted to gossip instead of evidence. The suspended promotion was restored, along with the income I had lost. On February 1st, I became head of internal medicine. My new office has one framed object on the wall. It is not my medical degree. It is my grandmother's letter. Use this to build something that belongs to you. I used the recovered money to establish a patient assistance fund in her name. It covers transportation, medication, and short-term home care for people who might otherwise go without treatment. 6 months after the hearing, a reporter stopped Evelyn outside the courthouse and asked why she had called me a gold digger. Evelyn opened her mouth. Then she saw Daniel standing behind the reporter with another box of records. She said nothing. That silence told the truth better than any confession could. I used to believe generosity meant giving until nothing remained. I know better now. Love does not require financial blindness. Marriage does not excuse deception. And family does not receive permanent permission to exploit the person who helps most. I did not win because I shouted louder than Evelyn. I won because receipts do not become confused, signatures do not forget, and bank records do not care who looks respectable beneath a chandelier. The real gold digger had accused me first because she believed shame would keep me quiet. She was wrong. Truth does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it walks into a courtroom carrying 2 document boxes. Share this story with someone who has been punished for finally setting a boundary. Tell me in the comments what you would have done when Evelyn made that accusation. And subscribe to Raw Drama Stories for more stories where the truth gets the final word.